we only had 46 days to shoot it,
Yeah.
Motherless Brooklyn, and we did it on a pretty tight indie budget.
I want to stop you a second because for all of you out there, I've been fortunate enough to work with some pretty talented people.
Yeah.
And there's some good directors and actors and writers, and then there's some really good writers, directors, and actors, and then there's the special. I don't want to say genius, but there are the people who can multitask in a way that most of us can't and understand all of it.
Right.
And Edward and Warren Beatty and Barbara and people like that are way beyond. And I was lucky enough to produce the director of Faith.
Yeah.
And I watched someone who, again, wrote, directed, produced with me, and starred in another movie.
Right.
And so I know that all of you here are very fortunate because there aren't many people who get to see someone like this genius. So.
We had more money and time to make the Rabbi Priest joke into a romantic comedy than we did to make this big New York epic. And
But because you made that first, you at least had a better idea.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
But the part of the answer to your question is I went to a cast of my New York cohort of actors who, to be honest, I think, in our circles, like, there's still this kind of, honestly, slightly overhyped romance with the idea of the method actor and the intuitive actor and everything. And I went to actors, like, basically saying, no method actors on this movie. I need, like, theater actors, stagecraft pros. We're gonna get 3 takes at just about every setup. I need people who can come ready to rock.
Yeah.
No time for preciousness, no time for notes. Like, this was a, like, method actor band film. And everyone in this film is a stage veteran who I knew how to show up ready to rock, needing very little from me, and that's how you get it done.
Yeah, right.
There
you go. I guess there was a famous story of Marlon Brando asking Laurence Olivier, how did you direct yourself in Hamlet? And everybody said, well, get a stand-in who can act. And I wondered, you're surrounded with so many wonderful talents. I wondered, was anybody spelling you, or you just had to all come in?
No, I'm not. Look, I had made a film with Dick Pope called The Illusionist. Dick is one of the great cinematographers alive. Yeah, Dick has shot every Mike Leigh film, and Dick has shot beautiful period films, like The Illusionist, like Mr. Turner, which he was nominated for, on tight Mike Leigh budgets.
Yes.
And he's an old documentary filmmaker too. I trust his eye, and I also kind of, there's certain people who they're like, you do a certain thing and you look, you don't even have to add, you catch the look on their face and you know if things are in the zone. I also have a great producing partner in Bill Migliore, who I've known since we were actors in New York when we were 24, and he's a great actor too. And you have your touch points, your people you trust. I felt that way when we were working on Primal Fear. By the time I knew the things Hawk had produced, been first AD on in his career, I actually, when we shot the last scene of Primal Fear, the last scene of the movie, there'd been a lot of debate about what the nature of the whole thing, how it should wind down, and we kind of improvised a lot of that, and there was you could feel kind of the crusty old crew going, well, we'll be back in September to redo that, you know what I mean? There was a lot of talk about like, they don't know what they're doing, we're gonna reshoot this, and I remember we shot it, and I was kind of like, fuck all these guys. I looked at the back of the room, and Hawk was going, yes, that was it. And I was like, we got it. There are people you trust.
Right.
And I think,
You drove around in the golf cart before you did this.
yes. I think, Francis Coppola has a great line about directing that the best thing about it, I think he said the best thing about filmmaking is it's collaborative, and the worst thing is that it's collaborative. But I actually think it's only the best thing. It's you when you direct a movie, especially one like this, it's really, you're a lunatic. You're the person saying, we're going to make a 1950s period film, big scale, big car chases, 600 effect shots. We're going to do it for $25 million. We're going to have the best actors in the world. They're all going to work for scale. And anybody sane just runs. Like, they run away. They're like, this is going to be bloody. It's going to be horrible. He's an idiot. And then you get Dick Pope, you get Beth Mickle, you get, Amy Roth, you get this cast, and suddenly what really happens is you get dozens of people who are themselves top shelf talents, and they're leveraging their talent against the problem set that you've created, and suddenly they're making it look like you know what you're doing. And it is a film is a layer cake of talent. If it works, it's people leveraging each other's talent right on up. And I think as a director, what you're really trying to do is create a frequency alignment so that everybody's working in the same aesthetic vein, and hopefully, of course, it's a good story and things like that. But half of directing is marshaling other people's talents into being 1 + 1 = 10.
Well, with that in mind, because I've seen a lot of his work, Alec Baldwin, it was very interesting to see that here he has almost a kind of bow-legged walk that he's got going, and that's not his natural walk, but it's so much the character. But what a beautiful thing to bring into the project. I wondered, was that a discussion point, or was it something that you...
I love questions like this because the greatest thing about any good film is a prism that people see things through from whatever their perspective is. And the truth is, like, Alec had hip replacement surgery about 17 days before the show. Right. So I want to say that his character that we thought about, what's your spirit animal? I think he's a wounded bull. No, he had a surgery.
Same thing happened. Sidney Pollack was telling me a story. Sidney Pollack, great director out of Africa, Tootsie.
Right. He worked with the president again.
Yes, right. Yeah. But Sidney was always asked, why did you never shoot low on Streisand at the end of The Way We Were when she goes over to see Redford and they touch each other? Well, the truth was, we couldn't stop the traffic on 59th Street. So the only reason we shot up is because we could only shoot up. We couldn't shoot straight ahead.
He was the first assistant director on The Way We Were.
Well, the Rosemary Baby shining down.
But it was, everybody said, Sidney is so smart.
Yeah, right.
I think that, sometimes you write a thing and you can get very hung up on the idea of an actor in your head. It can be a very dangerous bet because if you don't get that person, you get very hung up. And Alec, when I was thinking of like lethal capacity to seduce, lethal capacity to intimidate, New York to his core, old world heft, you start going like Alec Baldwin, it's like, I really have in my head.
You told me early on before you ever got started, was Bruce Willis and Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, and I think, you start having a videotape in your head of him saying, if someone wants to jag me, then the Dodgers can take it on the arches to the fucking coast, and you just go, I can't imagine anybody else saying that line better than him, or inhabiting it. And when you, same with Willem, when a lot of us moved to New York, Bobby and Cannavale and Mark Ruffalo and Sam Rockwell and Phil Hoffman, we were all in New York coming up, and Willem was the kind of actor we all wanted to be. He had a downtown New York theater company. He had stayed committed to it, even as he became, this great film actor and all these things. And it was like all of us were starting theater companies, and that's the kind of person you want to be. So when you get to work with someone like Willem, it's just tremendous. It's like a tremendous privilege and experience, and he has that. To me, I was like, well, who seems unhinged but is moral at the core? Well, that's Willem,
Right.
It's like who's got a better crazy face than Willem?
That's the female lead. It's Gugu Motherless, how do I?
And Motherless.
And Motherless, sorry. Well, she's so terrific, and I wanted to ask you just about your work with her on this, because she's at least known to me. I mean, I see a lot of movies I've not, maybe I've seen her without noticing her before, but you've got to a very great molten moral core with
She's
her.
English. She was our only import non-New York actor, and she, I had seen her in a number of things and was really struck by her, and I think that it's funny, it relates to Primal Fear. I think that there are times when I wanted Laura to be a figure of mystery. I wanted Laura to be someone who, like Lionel, along with Lionel, you're leaning toward her to try to, you want to know more. And so Gugu is very well known, but not necessarily broadly known to a wide audience. And I thought there's that wonderful magic moment in an actor's career where you've seen, like, I knew she was going to be great, but you also knew that the audience would not know exactly what was coming, you know, and that enhances what's going on in the story, which is the sense of discovery, his discovery of her. We get a lot. I knew a lot of audience would get to have that, and I think that's special. There's only honestly, in Primal Fear, I think that more than half of the reason it worked was because no one had ever heard me open my mouth, and the things that Deb is talking about and that Hawk is talking about, in truth, the fact that when it started, no one had any reason, no one had any context, no one had any reason to think that my voice was any other than that the story was real. And when there's no layer of artifice in a thing, it has a different kind of potency. I felt that way when Ralph Fiennes was in Schindler's List. Who will ever forget that performance? Because you were like, who in God's name is that? He's just scaring the living shit out of me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think those moments are exciting. I felt like, Bruce Willis is the opposite. You want someone who, the minute he turns the corner, you go, there's the coolest guy in the room.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be working for him. I just want to be in his club, and that's how Lionel feels. You get it, you know what I mean?
Audrey Hepburn in Roman Holiday.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who Audrey Hepburn was.
Yeah.
Now,
Dustin and
yeah.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, to get on to Primal Fear, we need to wrap. I have one last question for each of you. First, Hawk, this book of yours is so wonderful, and one of the great things about it is you talk about, in a way, it's a kind of self-search because you're trying to identify yourself apart from your father's giant name, and yet you're having the greatest run of luck in the world. You're lucking your way into self-discovery. I wonder, in thinking of looking back over your career, and you've got so many people here who are trying to get films made themselves. How do you articulate the key lesson in terms of that struggle?
Number one, show up.
Mm-hmm.
Show up for your friends, show up for your family, and most of all, show up for yourself. If you want to act, you can act. You don't have to be a movie star to act. If you want to direct, especially today, you've got your iPhone.
Yeah.
Direct, you want to produce, put a bunch of your friends together and come up with a story.
Yeah.
You want to write, same thing. Love what you do, and maybe somebody's going to see it if it's a great idea, if it's a great piece of work, they're going to see it. But don't wait for somebody at a studio or some financer to all of a sudden give you the wherewithal to become. Edward was lucky, seriously. If he isn't there that day and Deb doesn't see him, who knows if Edward's ever discovered? You don't know. So I'm just saying to everybody out there, especially today, you have every chance to write, produce, direct, act, be a cinematographer right now without having to go to a studio or finance. You can do it on your iPhone. And that's really the best advice I can give.
No, it's wonderful. And I think that in terms of that theme of discovery, was there a discovery you made on this particular picture, Edward, a surprise that was a great gift that you learned a lot by that you take away to your next thing?
Sure. That's a good question. I mean, I'm always, you're always confronted with moments that diverge from what you had in your head or what you had planned. And there's a funny tension on this because we had to move. We really had to move. We really did not have a lot of time to indulge in a lot of takes. We were also shooting in New York on the streets, controlling extras in 50s clothing. You know, you just didn't have a lot of time. And I think when there's a virtue there, it's something I learned from Spike Lee making the 25th Hour, which he shot in 27 days. And when there's a real virtue. Spike has that. Wes Anderson has that. Alejandro Iñárritu has that. The vision, but planning like the Dirty Dozen. Donald Duck goes here. You know, and I really admire that. I think filmmakers who make big, visionary, bold, artistic, cinematically rich films and aren't in any way hampered by limitations on resources and time. They working with people like that is like going to school, and it's a great gear to be in. But when you run into a moment where those demands can make you tighten up creatively, they can make you they challenge the zen of dealing with what's actually in front of you, with what's actually happening. And in some ways, you can get into a kind of an analytical brain tightness that, as an actor, can really screw with the availability that you need to have to what's happening right in front of you. And I think that on this, there was a number of times when you talk about this cast, the cast helped me, really saved me, because sometimes as a director, as a producer, I was hitting this, I was slipping on, my feet were slipping under me because I was thinking, we're losing light, and I get this long walk and talk with Willem in the park, a lot of text, all these things, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe we really shouldn't do this. I shouldn't put him through this. I can't do this to Willem Dafoe. And he actually is looking at me like, let's give it a whirl. Like, what do you got to lose? Like, let's. And we ended up shooting it in a very different way than we planned. No tracks, steady cammed it, shot it almost without cutting. And suddenly you realize, like, you just go, why did I tighten up? Why was I we're not really in any dangerous situation. We're just making a movie. And fortunately, someone like Willem was what I needed. He was that actor. He was available. He was using the pressure of the moment to drive urgency into the scene. You know what I mean? And I've done this a long time now. I've made like 40-something films. It's amazing how your brain, anxiety can tighten you up, and sometimes you just have to always remind yourself to stay open and take chances, take swings at things, and not be afraid.
You said something really important, which is most of these directors and most of the actors, prep is everything. Prep is everything. If you have a vision of what you want on the screen, whether you're the actor or you're the director or the cinematographer, if you've prepped it, then when something happens and you have to make that change, you're ready.
Yeah.
You're ready.
Right.
You can make that switch.
Right.
But if you are just waiting to see what's going to happen, a lot of times I've watched it just fall on its
And actually, let me see this, because this relates to Hawk's book, which you should grab immediately. I think there's 3 memoirs. I would say my 3 favorite memoirs of making movies and films are Hawk's, Bob Evans' Kid Stays in the Picture, and Roger Corman's How I Made 100 Movies and Never Lost a Dime. Right? Those are really.
Wow, thanks, Edward.
No, seriously. Hawk's stories are so. I say this a lot. And I really mean it. Like, I retell Hawk's stories about making movies more than I tell movies about my own experience of making movies, because there are none better. He has the best stories about making movies of literally anyone I've ever met in the business, and I tell them as if I was there, because I've heard them so many times and they're so good. But creative people, I think the value of reading the kinds of experiences that someone like Koch has had in working with people he's worked with, is that what I got in making my own films with Koch, I got out of his stories before he'd ever put them in a book. It's not just that it humanizes these legendary films, but it also makes you realize the degree to which the very best things that you've ever seen, the things that we all hold up as classics, which Koch's worked on an extraordinary number of, they all feel half-baked. They all feel like they're on the cusp of failure at every moment. They have chaos, they have argument, they have friction, they have hilarity. And the irony is that these legendary stories, when someone like Koch lets you inside of it, it demystifies these things that we in some ways, we create legends around them, and it's enormously helpful. It was always enormously helpful to me to hear from him how these things really went. Because as a creative person, it makes it feel more doable, ironically. It makes it feel more like, hey, these were just people like us swinging hard at something, not entirely sure, chasing alchemy, and kind of like if that's how it really was, then there's no reason not to try myself, And I think that's why really good memoirs of the experience of a trade, and Koch also deals with the experience of getting to know yourself through your love of the trade. It's really a value, especially young people who aspire to that, because there's sort of like it illuminates the actuality of how these things get done, and it's very special because not that many people, lots of people have made a lot of movies, but not that many people tell the stories well, and Koch tells them so well.
Well, we feel infinitely illuminated by your being here with us with these two particular pictures. Thank you so much for being here.